Good morning, everybody. Um, Looks like Gary's absent today. Otherwise, we have a quorum for the committee. Everybody else is here. So we'll go ahead. The approval of the minutes from November 6th. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Supervisor Morehouse, a second. Mr. Bernier, seconds. Any questions or additions? All in favor of approval, say aye. Opposed, say no. Minutes are approved. So here's this deal. Today we have two public hearings, and then we have a presentation. And I know there are people who want to speak. I believe there are people who will want to speak following Mr. Koch's presentation. So unless there's an objection from the committee, what I would suggest is that we allow for public comments following Neil's presentation so that the continuity is easier for our discussion. That okay with everybody? Looks like it. So then we will have public comment in the public hearing, and we will allow for some public comment following the presentation. Is there anyone outside of that who has public comments they'd like to share with the meeting today? Sucker. Okay. So then let's go with the public hearing. This is a proposal to change the zoning designation of property located at E3900 State Road 29 in the town of Menominee. We'll have Mr. Carlson give us a staff report, and then we'll have a discussion if there are any questions by the committee, and then any comments from anyone who would like to speak to the issue. So, Mr. Carlson, could you give us a report?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Tom. So Ann Wodarczyk could not be here today, and actually Tracy from the zoning office is going to be handling the staff report, which I have on the screen here, which Ann did provide here. So I'm going to turn it over to Tracy.
Tracy, sorry. Thank you.
All right, good morning. I just want to give a quick 30-second recap of the meetings that have led us up to today. So the first time that the committee heard this was August 21st, and at that time there was discussion and the motion to postpone until a second hearing. And that second hearing happened on October 2nd. And after discussion and a motion, it was postponed until recommendations from the town of Menominee could be received. So that's where we are. How we are here today. So everything that I will say is all in addition to staff reports, discussions that have already been heard at previous meetings. So the property is located at E3900 State Road 29, currently owned by Dunn County. It's 10 acres. It's zoned general ag right now, and the proposed rezone designation is general commercial. The current use is the former Dunn County Solid Waste and Recycling Center, and it's currently zoned or being proposed to general commercial. The general commercial zoning would accommodate light manufacturing, warehousing, and professional offices, and it's a balance of flexibility with compatibility to nearby areas. So on October 24th, Ann did attend the Town of Menominee Planning Commission meeting, and they recommended changes to the property zoning designation to general commercial, which aligns with the future development plans for the area. And then just last week, November 12th of 2024, the Town of Menominee, their town board, voted unanimously to recommend the proposed change of the old transfer station from general ag to general commercial. So that's the information that we were waiting for, was that bit right there. now we're at next steps. So the committee can take action, approve or deny. Well, if it approve, it would be recommendation onto county manager, executive, county board, or postpone action, if any further, information is needed. They need, yeah.
Thank you,
Yep.
Cassie. Any questions by the committee? Is there anyone who would like to make public comments with regard to this zoning change? Michael?
Thank you. I just might want to mention this is the only time that public comments will be taken on this. Is that correct? Because it's a public hearing?
Say that one more time, Mike.
We're in a public hearing right now.
Right.
That's correct. So if someone wants to make a public comment, they have to make it now.
Right. That's correct. So this is the only opportunity that anyone will have to make a public comment with regard to this issue. Is there anyone present who would like to make a public comment about the zoning change? Looks like we're okay. So I'd ask for a motion from the committee.
I move that we approve it and send it on to the county board.
Is there a second?
Oh, yeah, I closed the hearing.
Second, there's for more seconds. Any further discussion by the committee?
I think we need to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's start over.
We have to do that outside the public hearing. I'm not thinking right now. So then, if there are no more comments, we'll close the public hearing. I appreciate that. And without objection, could we move the decision on the proposal to change designation of property up to this point in the agenda? So now, do I have a motion to approve or deny?
I would like to make a motion to approve this and pass it on to the county board.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment from the committee? All in favor of the zoning change, say aye. Opposed, say no. Motion is approved. Let's see. Would it be okay? We have the staff reports. Help me sort through this, if you will, committee. We have the staff reports, and then we have the presentation by Mr. Koch. I know there are people here for that presentation, and I know there are several representatives from the DNR online who would like to make comments. And then, so trying to think about how to make this happen for people's times most efficiently. Let's move if it's okay with people, could we move let's just go ahead with the agenda as it is for now. Let's do the staff reports and get that over with.
It's okay, Heather. Sorry.
So you really want to hear from me?
Yeah, we really do. We really do.
Yeah, we didn't meet in September to review our monthly updates. So we have both September and October included here. I guess I don't really have anything to add. I was going to point out, just because I thought it was interesting and I didn't really remember this, but it was probably over 100 years ago, Cornell University bought about probably close to 5,000 acres. And then as they started to sell the property, they reserved a half interest in the minerals on the properties. So recently we just had we've been communicating with Cornell University because they had some questions on, so it's still an active reservation of mineral rights. And they have some questions on acreage and so forth. So we've been communicating with them. So I thought that was interesting, and I didn't remember that we had that mineral claim in our record, so. But yeah, other than that, I don't have anything further to add.
Any questions for Heather?
Where is that land? Just curious.
Oh, all over in the county. Yeah, I couldn't even, it was, like I said, I think it was close to 5,000 acres, and I don't think it was just in one section or township. I'm not even sure.
Okay.
Interesting situation.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, who's up next? Tom?
Hey, good morning, everyone. So my staff report is up on screen, and as Heather mentioned, it contains 2 months, September and October. So you can see the land divisions where they've been occurring, how many new parcels have been created, the acreage that's been involved. So Colfax has been leading the pack lately. 27 maps of survey were submitted for review. We worked on 47 public land survey corners in many different townships throughout the county. Our ERP replacement or system to replace our ERP system. Right now, we're meeting with vendors. There's been 5 different vendors that have been coming in, giving us presentations. So during the month of October, I attended one of those meetings, and there's been several now that have happened since then. Also attended a supervisor training presentation in Eau Claire, and then that pretty much sums up my report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And then my financials are back here. So.
Any questions for Mr. Carlson? Okay, thanks, Tom.
Morning, everyone. My report is in the packet. Just a couple highlights just to point out our environmental education efforts. While sometimes they've waned since the COVID pandemic, we used to do much more before that, and we're hoping to get back there. But we're able to host a soils or land judging contest that we share with Buffalo and Pepin counties. Had over 80 students come up to Deach Family Farm back in October. We've had a few other events out at the demo farm, and then we also are advertising and getting information out to schools for the conservation poster contest. With the way the weather's been, we are still doing some construction projects. There's still guys planting cover crops right now. Our no-till drill is actively being used. Might not see a lot of growth this fall, but certainly in the spring. And then we're hoping to bring some sort of a report to you in the near future regarding the private well monitoring program that was done again this year. So all those results have gone out to all the participants. We'll likely have a summary for you in the near future. With that, I guess there's any other questions within the report, I'd be happy to answer.
Mr. Chairman, may
Well, Senator Morris.
just curious, Chase, about the cost sharing from Rusk County. How much money was exchanged? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, that was only about $1,400,
Oh,
roughly
okay.
around there. That was basically just to clean up one contract that we were short on money.
All right, all right.
But right now, Travis Dreyer in our office, who runs our nutrient management program, we've got enough interest in, I guess, people lined up for next year that we may be asking other counties for money again.
Okay,
So I'm
all right.
hoping that'll be the case.
All right, yeah,
Yeah.
keep us posted
Yep.
on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks, Chase. Tracy?
There isn't a report this month for
Okay.
P and Z,
All right.
so.
Okay, so look at the agenda again here. It seems to me like it might be best to do what we talked about earlier and move the consideration of the variance requests up to this point in time. So why don't we do that? Mr. Carlson, you want to?
Hey, good morning again. Let me get down to my so hopefully everybody can see this up on the screen. This will be the bulk of what we're going to be talking about this morning. So what we have before us is a variance request from Anthony Kovach. He could not be with us this morning, but the surveyor that's under contract with him is in the room here, Steve Kochaber. So if there's any questions that you have that I can't answer, hopefully Steve can help us out with some of that. So we're in Government Lot 4, Section 15, Town of Tanner. Looking at creating a 2-lot certified survey map. Lot 2 on the sketch here is about 3.1 acres. Lot 2 is about 4 acres. Current zoning of the property is R1 residential. The request this morning is to create a new lot that exceeds the 4:1 depth to width ratio requirement in section 16.46 sub 2G of the Dunn County Land Division Ordinance. So, and I will point out here, so this is the lot in question. There's a lot of lines on here, but it basically follows this line, comes down. It's a flag lot, if you will, and then follows it's got several hundred feet of frontage here on Tanner Lake. So this is the lot in question, lot number 3, that the variance request pertains to. It does not meet, or it exceeds the 4:1 depth to width ratio because of this long, narrow portion of the lot. So some background information. Mr. Kovach currently owns lot 1 of an existing certified survey map. We talked about the zoning. Property contains a residence, garage, 2 sheds, a septic system, and 2 wells. So his main residence is back here with some associated improvements. And I presume there was a building site out here years ago. I mean, there's a well there right now, a couple outbuildings. So if there was a residence, it has since been removed. The main residence is back here. So lot 2 will contain 2 sheds and its own well. The existing driveway serving lot 3 is quite long and contains a motorized gate near the entrance. And I'll show you a picture of that here in a little bit. I think that picture really speaks volumes to the improvements that were done along this strip. There's actually a concrete driveway in here, a motorized gate. So anyway, the applicant would like lot 3 to include ownership of the driveway and the gate for obvious reasons. It's a financial investment, which results in the lot configuration that we see up here exceeding the 4:1 depth to width ratio. There's steep slopes in excess of 20% on a portion of the subject property, mainly along the lake. So the reconfiguration or actually the division of his existing lot requires the preparation of a certified survey map. And again, one of the ordinance requirements is we can't exceed the 4:1 depth to width ratio. So we have a provision in the land division ordinance under section 16.83 that allows for a variance request, which is why we're here. So the analysis, the purpose of the depth to width ratio, in my mind, is to prevent the creation of long, narrow lots as well as the crowding of improvements along the narrow portion of the lot while leaving land behind vacant and unserviceable. So we can see on here the improvements right now are already generally situated near the rear or back of the property. And it's very unlikely, I guess highly unlikely, that any additional improvements will be constructed along the narrow portion of the lot due to setback requirements, plus the driveways there. So the approval of the variance would allow the applicant to divide off a building site along the town road out here while retaining ownership of the existing driveway that is secured with the gate that I mentioned, providing access to the town road. If the variance is not approved, the applicant could reconfigure these 2 lots and reserve an easement interest over the existing driveway. Does everybody understand that? So if this lot line just came down, this likely would not exceed the 4:1, but then this strip that contains a driveway would be owned by lot 2, and the owner of lot 3 would have to reserve an easement over that. So it really comes down to owning the driveway versus having rights to use it through an easement. Does everybody understand that? So that would be possible. It would be possible. So just full disclosure on that. Doing so, however, would require a variance. We'd need a different variance because if you remember, our land division ordinance requires all proposed access easements to be 66 feet in width. And access easements can't contain any proposed or existing structures. So if we made this line is fixed, this is a property line right here. And if we made that the required 66 feet, this shed would be a non-conforming structure at that point. It would be located in the easement not allowed. So the applicant would have to ask for one of 2 variances, either to allow for a structure to be located in a proposed access easement if we made it 66 feet, or ask for a reduced width on the easement. Right now it's at 50 feet. So both of these, no matter how we flip the coin, we're going to need some type of a variance here. If we run an easement in, we need a variance. And if we create ownership of the driveway, we're here today for the variance. So, yeah. So then we get into variance requirements. Number one, strict application of the land division ordinance would impose undue hardship because of unique topographic or other conditions of the land involved or conditions predating adoption of this chapter. This part I'm struggling with. I really am. And I hope you all read the staff report. The hardship, if you read the applicant's application, the hardship that's claimed by them is that the location of the long driveway, that's the hardship. They want to own the driveway. And in my mind, I guess we look at, is it a self-imposed hardship? They constructed that driveway there lawfully. Right now, they own the whole thing. They constructed the driveway, but in my mind, I'm looking at it, is it self-imposed? And furthermore, an undue hardship can be viewed where in the absence of a variance, an owner would be denied reasonable use of the property. So I guess if we deny this, or the committee denies this variance request this morning, would the owner be denied reasonable use of the property? And I don't think the answer to that is yes. Right now they have reasonable use of the property. It's the fact they're trying to split it off. So this one is I'll be honest, is tough for me. There's currently reasonable use of the property. It could be argued that the use will continue if the variance is not granted this morning. So just full disclosure there. The next step of the variance requirements is to look at all the purpose statements that are in our ordinance. So I'm not going to go through all of them because I believe what they're asking for, certainly meets all the purpose statements. Except I just need to highlight purpose statement 7, and that says to protect or prevent destruction or impairment of environmentally sensitive areas. So the proposed new lot that exceeds the 4-to-1, it'd be lot 3, does contain environmentally sensitive areas, which are steep slopes and lands within 75 feet of the ordinary high water mark. However, it should be noted the existing improvements on the parcel are not within those steep slopes or within the 75 feet. So otherwise, I believe the request certainly meets the purpose statements of our ordinance. And then lastly, the variance shall not be contrary to Wisconsin statutes or Wisconsin Administrative Code, and I do not believe granting the variance would be contrary. So I just want to go through, make sure I'm not missing anything. So this is the staff or the application that was presented. You can see the sketch map here. This will be a certified survey map if the variance is approved. We've got the landowner written brief here, which was, I think, well put together, and hopefully you've had a chance to read that. Here's a copy of the certified survey map. Right now, lot 1 is the subject property that we're looking at dividing into 2 new lots. And then here's a kind of an air photo of the area. I know it's hard to see on the screen here, but you can see the long driveway going in, the residence back here. Just gives you I guess, bigger picture of where things are situated. I am going to try to bring up some pictures here next. Just to give you some perspective. So this is the south property line. There's a chain link fence running here separating the subject property. You can see one of the outbuildings here with the neighboring property. And then the gate, if I zoom in here. So this is the motorized gate. And the driveway, the long driveway, you can see that runs back in. You can't see the main residence, but it's tucked in back here. So this is the motorized gate and the driveway. It's a substantial financial investment in the property, and I can certainly see why the landowner would want that to retain ownership of that with the main building site. So, and then just there was just a few other. This is the stub driveway going off into one of the outbuildings, and then this is just some fence along the road. So, back it open back up. So I don't have anything else to add. That concludes my staff report. If there's questions, I can certainly try to answer them. And if there's any additional questions, again, Steve Kochaber is here, representing the applicant. So I'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
Sure. Does the committee have any questions or comments
Yeah,
for
Mr.
the
Chairman.
Morehouse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom, would you say some more about number one, the notion of self-imposed hardship here?
Yeah.
Maybe about subsequent plans for use of the property, et cetera. I'm sort of with you. It
I mean, when I look
makes
at,
me raise questions.
yeah, so just to use an example, say I have, 40 acres of land and it's all wetland, but there's a small ridge running through, and that's my only access point. That's above all the wetland, or say there's floodplain. To me, that's a topographic condition. And if I can't, it was what was given to me, right? I bought the land. It is what it is. This is my only access point. I can't come in anywhere else. Maybe I'm severing something with the access easement. I need a variance to sever the lot. To me, that's, you know, that's a hardship. If I'm not granted this, I can't access the property anywhere else. This is, my hand is kind of forced here. In this case, I mean, the driveway was put in at a certain time. I don't think there was ever a plan to divide the lot at that time. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I don't, Mr. Kovac isn't here. I can't speak for him. But the fact is that long driveway got put in, and does it constitute a hardship? I fully understand why he's asking for this, and I think his rationale is certainly there. If I'm gonna purchase this house back in there and pay a lot of money for this building site, I really want to own my driveway and my gate. But does it rise to the level of a hardship? It's all about splitting this lot off out front, is really why we're here. It's not so much, I mean, the driveway is kind of collateral, it's collateral damage. We're really here because we want to,
Right.
the applicant would like to create this lot. And in doing so, it leaves this balance back here. And I really go back to, this 4-to-1 depth to width ratio. We've seen a few of these now come through since we've adopted that standard. And I'll be honest, I don't like it. It creates some issues because, this landowner could lop this off right here and still do what he wants. It really comes down to the flag pole of the flag lot and whether or not it's owned or you have an easement. Because there's a way around this. We just lop this off and this becomes an easement. And we create this lot. And it's really that simple, in my mind, is ownership or easement of the driveway. Right now, our ordinance doesn't allow for ownership of this skinny driveway without a variance. So I've stopped short of making a recommendation to the committee. I can see
know.
both sides of it. I can see both sides of it. And I just have to be transparent. I mean, I have to answer these questions, and the committee has to answer these questions. Is there a hardship?
May I? So I'm wondering about the statement. There's currently in this same issue, number one, there's currently reasonable use of the property, and it could be argued that it will continue without granting of the variance. That's something that could be said about any variance request, I think, right? That, for any variance request, it's being used in a certain way, it's reasonable use, right? And they could continue using it the same way, right, without a variance request. So it kind of feels vacuous to me, since that is something that would apply to all variance requests, then I wouldn't be inclined to apply that standard here. If that does that seem to read or?
Okay. So regarding reasonable use, right? So, there's, an argument, now I know you're not making a conclusion, but there is the argument here that there's currently reasonable use of the property, right? So the question is, would this be an undue hardship, right? And the argument is that no, we could continue to use the property the same way that would continue to be a reasonable use. And that, yeah, and that use would be able to continue without the granting of the variance. And I understand that, right? That makes sense. Got it. But what I'm pushing back on is I'm wondering, I feel like that argument could be applied to maybe not every, but nearly every variance request that we look at as a committee, right? And so to me, it feels just vacuous that there's no reason to even have a consideration like that. If we can always just fall back on the previous use.
Mr. Carlson, Mr. Chairman, if the owner were to be, okay, if this were simply an easement, does it affect the property owner's ability to subsequently sell the property?
No, it would not. No, we can't approve the creation of a landlocked parcel, so we would have to have an easement there, and then any future conveyance would have to include
Include the
language,
easement.
include the easement, right?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Tom, the variance requirements, are all of them supposed to be met in order to grant a variance?
Yes, I believe so. I do have, I could share another document here quick. So if we go to section 16.83 of the County Land Division Ordinance, so here's the variance section. I'll get it larger so everybody can see it, but so it talks about, the procedure. So right here, item number 3, I think speaks to your question, Mr. Kinnear. The committee shall not grant variances unless it shall make findings based on evidence presented to it with each request for a variance that the granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the public safety, health, or welfare. I don't believe it will be. Personal opinion. Conditions upon which the request is based are unique to the property for which the variance is sought and are not applicable generally to other property. Because of the particular physical surrounding shape or topographical conditions of the specific property involved, a particular undue hardship to the owner would result as distinguished from a mere inconvenience. Undue hardship shall relate solely to the physical characteristics of the property, financial hardship, loss of profit, self-imposed hardship such as that resulting from unfamiliarity with regulations, deed restrictions, proceeding without required permits, or illegal sales are not sufficient reasons for the granting of a variance.
Tom, just interrupt you for a second. Where does it say all of these have to be met?
I guess it doesn't say that. I'm looking at it. Shall make findings based on evidence. Yeah, the word all is not in there.
So if the word all was in there, clearly, because I don't think it's a hardship either, we would not be able to approve it based on this ordinance if the word all was in there for sure. Okay, we would have no choice. It seems we do have a choice in the wording of the ordinance right now.
Correct. As I read this, it says the variance shall not impair the intent and purpose of this chapter. And I went through those purpose statements, none of which talk about the hardship. The hardship is not in the purpose statements.
Can you, thank you. Can you scroll up a tiny bit to, I think it was 3B? Or where were we?
3B?
I don't know where we are. There, that section C there that talks about undue hardship shall relate solely to the physical characteristics of the property, financial hardship, self-imposed hardship, et cetera. So I appreciate that that's up there. That's actually making me feel a little bit differently. I see that self-imposed hardship is listed in there. So that makes sense now, the statement in the staff report. Also, I see here that undue hardship should relate to the physical characteristics of the property, right? So that suggests to me that that should be a topographical feature, and that's not what's here. Yeah, I've been thinking about this because this kind of problem is going to come up in the next variance request as well. And that's a topographical issue, right? There's wetlands and things like that, but that's not what's going on here. Yeah. Yeah. That seems like a good idea.
Do you want corp counsel? If you want to delay.
Yeah, sure. Let's,
Yeah.
is Corp Counsel here?
I'll go. Oh, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
go find somebody.
Mhm. Grab a seat.
My question was, does number 3 require us or say that all of the following, whoa, not moved. Fine, do all of the fine A, B, C, D, et cetera, do they all have to be met?
Like, which section are you talking about again? C?
See. But he's
Well-
actually talking about all of them.
Yes, I meant the entire part where we look through and Tom lists all the different things and always has a great list and makes comments on them. And he has them right here, variance requirements. First one was hardship, second one, promote wise use, et cetera.
Okay.
And do all of them have to be met in order for us to approve it according to our ordinance?
Excuse me, my reading is that all 3 need to be met.
May I ask another question? Looking at section C, there's a statement near the middle. The sentence starts, undue hardship shall relate solely to the physical characteristics of the property. Can you say more about how we might interpret physical characteristics of the property?
Let me read here for a little bit.
Yes.
It seems to me that they're really talking about the physical characteristics of the property. What would that be? That would be the topography, the limitations of, how do you see that, Tom?
I guess as I read it, physical,
It should be based solely on the physical characteristics of the property. And then a list of things that are not relevant to that decision.
right? So I picture like a steep ridge, unusable slopes, wetlands, floodplain. Those are physical characteristics of the
That's what I read
property.
it as too. And to me, it does, to me, I don't know what council maybe address that too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. My third or fourth reading of it, for the first time, by the way.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
I would agree with that.
Put you on the spot here. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. No, I would agree with that statement.
And this, I think in this case, I mean, normally we use easements because you're having someone buy a piece of property and they want to secure something. In this case, you're selling the property. So you really have control over the entire control of how the easement is structured. And you can structure that in a way that assures your property rights and doesn't really cause any physical um, uh, controversy with regard to the characteristics of the property or alter or in any appropriate way the characteristics of the property. To me, it feels like, given our statutes, that we would probably deny this variance. But I want to, since it's not a public hearing, but there may be people here who want to address this issue. Would you like to? Yeah, please go up to the front.
I'll wait.
Name and address, Steve.
Hello, I'm Steve Coachaver. I'm the the land surveyor on this particular project, E5824 490th Avenue, Menominee, Wisconsin. So I've listened to this discussion here. I guess I wrote a note. So when exactly does a self-imposed hardship kick in? When does that happen? When he decides to divide the lot? Because as it stands now, if it's undivided, he's fine. Is that, there's no variance needed. So he decides he wants to make two lots out of the one. Is that when the self-imposed hardship comes in? Because I agree with the statement the supervisor made that this could be any survey put in front of us, any variance. What if their undue hardship starts when they are going to split the lot? I guess that would be my argument. Is that the way we interpret this? And physical, again, that's okay. Terrain, I get that, but isn't a concrete driveway with a motorized gate fall into the physical characteristics of the property category? I understand there's some loose interpretation of what physical is: terrain, wetlands, topography, etc. I understand that, but to me, there could be more involved with that term physical. So, and the third point I guess I might make is if you deny this, what we call a flag lot, as Tom put it, and then go to an easement situation, is that ideal? Or would that also fall back on the same argument of undue hardship, self-imposed hardship, sorry. And the committee could just kick that back on the same argument. One thing I'll make a note on Tom's example of the 40 with the ridge. That's a pretty unique thing. I mean, why would you buy that 40 if there wasn't any access and you knew you needed to get a variance to come and get access. So where is that undue or self-imposed hardship that he bought the lot with that terrain and no access across the wetlands? I don't know. I'm not trying to interpret your ordinance here. I'm just trying to make a case for my client's situation here. He's has a lot invested on that concrete driveway going into that fairly expensive house. We're talking, you know, upper 6 digits for that house. So that would be my say on this thing, that I don't think an easement would be preferable, because then lot 2 has control over that concrete driveway. Who maintains it then? I just see that not being a good option if that's the course that, you know, we deny this one. We think an easement's a better option. I disagree. I don't like easements, especially on long driveways like that. So thank you for your time.
Any questions of Steve before you leave, Steve? Thank you. Good points. Let me ask Tom, the purpose of this, of our ordinance, in your mind, is to avoid narrow lots, right? So I mean, the real question to me is an easement a appropriate solution to this landowner's situation, or is there a compelling reason why a driveway would, ownership of the driveway would be more appropriate? And I can't see that the physical, the things that the ordinance talks about physically, physicality, the environmental issues, would be damaged by either of these. But what is the purpose of the narrowness of the lot? That's there to provide, could you go over that one more time? Why you would want to avoid that?
Sure. And it doesn't specifically say in our ordinance, you know, the intent of the 4-to-1. So I'll be honest, I Googled it months ago, because I'm trying to figure out why do other municipalities have this standard? A lot of other municipalities do. And that's the answer I came up with, which makes sense. You know, it's to prevent clustering of improvements out near the front and then rendering the rest of the lot behind unusable. Here, we're not going to have that. We're not. I mean, the structures are already there. Anything additional that's going to be placed will be in the back somewhere. It seems like a moot point to me. Nobody's going to put a gazebo in that 50-foot strip.
So either decision we make here is not going to impact what appears to be the overall intention of the statute. So I could go either way.
And Tom, if I may, I forgot to mention that Jerry Merdut is here as well, from representing the town of Tainter. And I believe, according to Steve, that the town of Tainter has reviewed this and has expressed approval of it. Not that that has any bearing on our decision today, but it's something I think is worth noting, that the town of Tainter has already looked at this and may have something to add, just so you're aware.
Come on, Jerry, give us your thoughts. Sorry this is taking so long, folks. Name and address.
Jerry Merdut, E5905, 803rd Avenue, Menominee, Wisconsin.
Okay.
I'm on the Planning Commission and the Town Board of the Town of Tainter. We reviewed this and we just felt that ownership of that driveway would be more desirable than an easement. And here's another thing. Who pays the taxes on that concrete strip? Does the person that grants an easement across their land, are they going to be paying the taxes on a concrete driveway? And the other thing, and the property owner that's granting the easement pays the taxes on that land. And I've got an example. I own 12 acres in northern Wisconsin. I've got a 22-foot easement across the north portion of my land. I'm restricted on what I can do in that easement. So I'm paying taxes on land that I cannot use. I'd much rather have the people that have the easement be paying the taxes on that property rather than me when I'm restricted on my usage of it. And that's my view as ownership over easement.
Any
And
questions?
that was what
Chairman?
we-
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jerry, did the Plan Commission talk about an easement specifically?
Yes, we feel that easements eventually end up being problems.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those are good points. Anyone care to venture a motion on this? Yeah. Well, sure. Name and address.
Here. Richard Thomas, N 2010, 120th Street, Menominee, Wisconsin. I'm a member of the Land Use Planning Commission on the town of Dunn. As a preface, I have no real objection to seeing a subdivision like this take place. I would, however, point out when I was looking at this at home, that there's something that's not been considered. The basic reason for the split is obviously so that we can put another building in here. And as I understand it, Lake Tanner and Lake Monoman are both grossly polluted by both septic, non-point runoff, and probably runoff from Jerome's and things upstream. It, to me, is ironic that Neil Cook is here today, who is very knowledgeable about water. And unless I'm mistaken, Lake Tanner and its surrounds have a great deal of sandy soils and are very permeable. So it is kind of odd to me that we would take the time or even consider to add another septic system, which will, as Neil says, water flows downhill, whether it's above ground or below ground. So we're going to add another septic system, which will in time eventually flow a few hundred feet downhill to the lake and continue to pollute it. And so I would ask to this board, why are we approving and perpetuating a policy which has already damaged the lake and continues to do so into the future? Thank you.
Thank you. And I would just say that we are governed by a lot of different statutes, and this is not, this is a land division ordinance that we follow that unfortunately doesn't directly deal with septic systems. Monica,
Is this a decision that we can postpone for another meeting?
say again?
Is this a decision that we can postpone for another meeting?
Could, I don't know why I
Um,
don't see any reason to myself.
Okay. I mean, I personally am feeling like I would like more time to think about it, but if the rest of the committee is feeling ready to
Yeah.
vote, then that works for me.
Anyone else like to postpone? Okay. Then we'll go ahead if that's okay.
Sure.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion one way or the other on this. I mean, I can go either way. I think that when I think about it, the town's approval and the arguments about avoiding controversy are not directly relevant, but should be taken into consideration. The you know, long-term questions about ownership um, are important. This is a long driveway. Maintaining that driveway is important. Um, to the degree we can eliminate future conflicts, it would be a positive thing for both landowners. And then finally, I think that as I think about it, the narrowness of this lot, of this frontage lot, is a concern, but not the kind of concern that's sort of implied in our ordinance. So it doesn't really set a precedent for future activities and that sort of thing. So I wouldn't have any problem with approving it, I guess. But
Mr. Chairman,
anyone, other comments about that or a motion?
While I have still some concerns about this, I'm going to move approval of the variance request. I've been persuaded by the town.
So we have a motion to approve the variance. Is there a second?
I will second it so that we can have further discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion.
I thought it was pretty clear until Mr. Kochaber came up there and gave us some other reasons. Thanks a lot for making it more difficult, Steve. But it seems to me this is the ordinance that guides us. And if we have to meet all the requirements of the ordinance, the question is it a hardship? If it's not a hardship, I really struggle approving it because the ordinance says we can't. If it is a hardship, I have no problem approving it. So the question to me is it a hardship in this particular case? When I prepared for the meeting, I agreed with Tom's analysis. I did not think it was a hardship at all. Now I'm not as sure. So I'd like to focus on that. What do you think? The three of you and Tom, I'd like to hear some comments on that before we take a vote.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I mean, I tend to agree that this is a self-imposed hardship, but I was persuaded by Mr. Merdut's comment about disagreements between landowners, taxation questions, et cetera, et cetera. And it seems to me that in itself would constitute a fairly significant hardship. So that's why, I mean, I've changed my mind here. I came in thinking that this was not approvable, but I've changed my mind. If that makes any sense to you.
Oh, it's definitely a hardship, but you feel it's not self-imposed.
Kinda. Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? So we have a motion to approve, which we batted around a little bit. Unfortunately, we don't have our fifth supervisor here today, so we may default to Monica's position after all. Unless,
Well, I should just say I'm planning on abstaining. I don't feel comfortable making this decision today.
okay. Any further discussion? So I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion or the variance, say aye.
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 Aye. We have opposed? Abstaining? We have 3 aye votes and 1 abstention. So The motion carries and the variance is approved. Thanks, everybody, for a difficult discussion. Let's go to 8B and get this part of the agenda over with. And 8B, Tom, give us a summary.
Okay, thank you. This one may be just as difficult. We have a lot of moving parts on this one, some similar and some different and unique. So this is the next variance request. It's been submitted by Randall and Jennifer Taylor, current owners of the property. Mr. Taylor is with us today in the back of the room, and person that's going to be purchasing some of this property, if the variance request goes through, is Mr. Crosby, and he's here as well. So we have both the owner and the purchaser. We're in section 16, Town of Sherman. We're looking at creating a lot and an outlot. So I'm going to get down. This will be our main point of discussion for this one. So we're looking at creating a lot in yellow. That's about 6 1/4 acres. And then the balance would be an outlot. That's around 13.75. Hasn't been surveyed yet. So these numbers are approximate. So the request is to create a new lot in yellow that exceeds the 4:1 depth to width ratio again. So some background, Randall and Jennifer Taylor own approximately a 20-acre parcel. I believe it's described as the south half of the 40. So you can see that up there. Town of Sherman, it's zoned general agriculture. The property contains a residence, a well, septic, and a shed. The applicant would like to divide the residence and related improvements from the remainder of the property, which is unbuildable. So this unbuildable portion that you can see up here represented by Outlot 1 is all mainly mapped wetlands. I have another sketch here. Here's our county parcel mapping. I know it's hard to see, but basically everything in green here, the green polka dotted area, is all mapped wetlands. So a good part of the first portion of the driveway is in the wetlands. Just the building site is out of it. So we'll go back to the sketch here. So they want to divide the property in this manner. So a certified survey map is going to be required to do this, and that's where this 4:1 depth to width ratio is coming in. So they've applied for a variance. And again, we talked about this on the last one, the reason for the 4:1 depth to width. Right now, the improvements are generally in the middle of this proposed lot that they're looking at creating. According to the applicants or the application, there's some fences along here, kind of along the usable area of the property. I believe in talking with the applicant just before the meeting started that this was pastured at one time. I don't believe it currently is, but that was the reason for these fences. So there is a really nice building site back here already established. Mr. Taylor, who owns the property, would like to retain ownership of the home in this configuration, and then the purchaser, Mr. Crosby, who lives just down the road, would like to use this and maintain it for pasture. So, and they are both here and willing to speak on some of these issues as well. So, again, lot 1 is going to contain mainly the buildable area and the driveway. It's going to exceed the 4:1 depth to width ratio. So then we get into before I get into the variance requirements, I always look at, is there another way to do what they want to do, right? The previous one, we talked about easement versus ownership. So I look at this as another way they can accomplish what they want to do. If they took this back line and moved it up in here and maybe ran this across, just so we're not exceeding the 4:1, I believe, certainly we could create a lot in here that would include these buildings. It wouldn't be able to go all the way. So does everyone understand? Here's the town road. So if we created a lot in here, it would have to stop short of the back 40 line. We could make a lot that would include the buildings. And then if they really wanted some additional land back here, they could designate that as an outlot. It's not ideal, but it would be an outlot such that the front lot would meet the 4 or not exceed the 4:1, and we would end up with the balance still as an outlot here. So we would end up with outlot 1, lot 1, and outlot 2. And that would be permissible under our land division ordinance. They wouldn't be able to put any structures back here on an outlot because it's deemed unbuildable. But that is an option available to them. It's not as desirable. So then we look at the variance requirements. We talk again, here we are, back to undue hardship, right? Because of unique topographic or other conditions of the land involved or other conditions predating adoption of this chapter. So the hardship that's claimed by the applicant is having to include non-buildable pasture or farmland with the proposed lot one. I get it, right? They want as much usable land with this lot as is possible. Regardless of how we configure this, though, somebody's going to be left paying taxes on the unbuildable portion of the property. So again, is there reasonable use of the property if the variance is not granted? I guess that's the question we have to, or something I think we should be considering. And then we look at the purpose statements in chapter 16, which I have laid out here. I'm not going to go through them. I believe the variance request meets all of those. I do want to focus on purpose statements 7 and 8. Statement 7 talks about preventing destruction or impairment of environmentally sensitive areas. So we do have mapped wetlands on here, which is an environmentally sensitive area. However, the improvements that are there are not impacting the wetlands. They're actually out of the wetlands. It could be argued the driveway, the beginning of the driveway, or first half is in the wetlands, but the stuff's all existing, right? So it's whether or not we approve the variance, it's not going to change what's already been done out there. So, and then conserve high value agricultural land. So we define what constitutes high value ag land in our land division ordinance. And one of those two standards is it has to meet either one. And the one it's meeting is its farmland preservation plan certified according to the Dunn County Comprehensive Land Use Plan. So it is considered high value ag land, although most of us looking at this maybe are questioning that. I know I was questioning. I was actually quite shocked, but but again, the improvements are there, right? It's not like we're dividing land, high value ag land to put a house on. The house is already there. We're just trying to get it on a smaller, more manageable piece of land. So, and then lastly, the variance request can't be contrary to Wisconsin statutes or Wisconsin administrative code, and I don't believe it is. So I'm going to just make sure I've covered everything. We've got, the written brief provided by the applicant, which hopefully you've all read. We received payment of the fees, application, my staff report. So again, both the landowner, Mr. Taylor, and the proposed purchaser, Mr. Crosby, are here to answer any questions or provide any more details on the property. I learned a lot more about the property just talking with those two gentlemen this morning. So I think it certainly would be worth your time to have them speak. So I'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
Sure. Thank you, Tom. We will ask if they have comments, but first, are there any questions of Tom from the committee? Mike?
Yeah, thank you. Can you call the map up with the yellow portion? Thank you, Tom. How much larger could you make the yellow lot 1, taking away from lot 1 to make it so it wasn't 4-1? For example, on the I assume it'd be the northwest half or something, or how much would it take? They're selling, I can't read the acreage.
Right now, I ran a quick area around the yellow, and it's it's about 6.25 acres. Represents the yellow.
Okay, so if they were to make that 8 acres and in the right area, would that make it so it isn't a problem with the 4-1?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to that ratio. So if they had 200 feet of frontage, they could go back no more than 800. It's that 4-1. If they had 300, they could go back 1,200. So, in theory here, I guess I'm doing quick numbers, but if they split this right down the middle and made a 10-acre lot, basically this is the south half of the 40. So then if it's the south half of that again, they'd have 330 by 1320 roughly, and that would, in theory, just meet it or not exceed it. So, but again, then, the pond is on lot 1 and this unusable land. I'm not saying that's a problem. I'm just saying that that seems to be the basis for their decision. There's some existing fences here that they want to maintain. They don't want to have to rebuild fences. And it just fits the way the land is currently being used. And the person, I guess my concern is what's going to happen to this outlot, right? We have unbuildable land there. It's like, okay, this one is coming out, you know, marketability down the road. What are the chances of lot one being hot on the market versus outlot one? Who's going to pay money for some? But the current, Mr. Crosby has a plan for this, and in talking with him, it sounds like he's going to continue ownership of this, and he's going to use it for the purpose that fits the property. So, but things change, things happen. So I guess this is another tricky one for me because it's, it seems like, well, is it maybe just for preference, right? We want this lot to have as much usable area as possible. And I get it. The fences are there. Nobody wants to start rebuilding fences or include a bunch of swampland that you're not going to use that Mr. Crosby would much rather have. So, yeah, it's.
So you've offered us if we didn't grant this, the owner has a solution of making outlot one on the east side.
Correct.
Another solution would be to make the to lot one larger, keep the fences where they are and rent a small portion, which is what I do with my property. And that's not a problem. It seems like there's at least two solutions to not having to exceed the 4-to-1.
Correct.
And in the previous one, there was a question about actual difficult improvements that have been made. And so I see a difference between the last request and this request. This one has at least two ways to avoid the 4-to-1. And so I don't see this one as a hardship yet. But I'm open to listening.
Any other committee questions?
Yeah.
Yep.
Tom, can you review the difference legally between a lot and an outlot?
Right. So a lot, when we look at parcels, right, in order to designate them as lots, they have to meet certain standards. They have to have a certain square footage based on usually the zoning ordinance, although the land division ordinance does set minimum lot size in unzoned towns that are not subject to shoreline zoning. So lots have certain standards. They have to have certain amount of frontage on a public road or an access easement. They have to have, buildable area. So if we look at somebody's trying to propose a brand new lot and there's hydric soils out there, we may require them or can require them to get some soil tests done to see if it's suitable for a septic system and where are they going to put the home and, the well and the septic, all those things. So lots have to meet certain standards where outlots typically don't. And outlots, according to definition, are not to be used as buildable parcels. So somebody can't put a home on an outlot. That's the difference.
Okay, so if we were to do the solution where we lop off the eastern part of lot one, yeah, and designate that an outlot, that would mean that they wouldn't be able to build on that later on.
Correct.
So that would be a hardship that I would want to avoid for them.
Keep in mind, there is a residence on here now, and we are in a zone township, so only one building for residential purposes would be allowed, but they wouldn't be allowed to put a pole shed back here.
Right.
So, but yeah, just to clarify.
Thank you.
Yep.
Or if they wanted to demolish the existing residence and, build further back, that they wouldn't be able to do that, so.
Any other questions from Mr. Carlson? Okay, do we have anyone from the landowners who'd like to speak?
And Tom, if I may, I failed to mention two of their surveyors here as well, Dustin LeBlond. So in case there's any questions about the surveying side of things, he is here.
Just name and address.
Randall Taylor, North 8612, 380th Street, Louisville. And I'm not from here, if you hadn't noticed. Can I just show you? I don't have a
Sure.
pointer, but I've got Lyme disease. I went from 190 to 138, so I'm not strong enough. I used to cut this with the tractor, and this, the tractor. And I've actually gone in that creek with my tractor. And I try to weed eat this to make it look good. I would rather Terry sell it to Terry so his livestock can make it look good, and I don't have to do all that. And the fences are already there. All it's gotta be is a little jog in here, time to go. That would really help me.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any thoughts?
Dustin LeBlond, 604 Wilson Avenue, Menominee, Wisconsin. I'm the land surveyor. And I just kind of wanted to reiterate that if we go with that outlot route, it will restrict the property more. And I guess for me, that is a hardship. He has expressed to me that he may want to down the road move and put something in the back there. He currently uses it as a dog park, and so he does use that area back there. He may want to put some accessory buildings back there at some point, so just something to keep in mind.
Any questions? Thank you.
Wait.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why not just make the lot larger? Or lot that he's selling smaller?
I think the big thing there is that he doesn't have the ability to maintain that, and that Mr. Crosby would. I think that's the main goal there, is that he doesn't want to have to try to maintain that area that he feels Mr. Crosby would be better equipped to do.
Thank you.
So committee discussion, thoughts?
There are two options for the person besides the variance. One of them is an outlot, which is not ideal. The other one is making outlot one smaller and keeping the fences where they are and not having to change anything. There's no extra work, and rent out that 1 or 2 or 3 acres, which would also reduce the taxes for Mr. Taylor, because it would be farmland. So I don't see a hardship, and if it's not a hardship, our ordinance doesn't really let us approve it.
Monica?
I would have to disagree with Supervisor Kinnear. I mean, I do see that renting it out would be a solution. It's also a hassle. If the property changes hands, the use changes, having to renegotiate continually, it's a hassle. And to me, it feels unnecessary. I would prefer to avoid it. Dividing the land in this manner, to me, makes sense, given the use and the topography. I feel very differently about this one than the last one.
I have no particular position. So here we are. I'm fine with either way, I guess. So would someone care to make a motion and we can put it on the table for discussion?
I would like to move approval of the variance request.
Do we have a second for that approval motion?
I'll second, Mr.
Reservoir
Chair.
House seconds, and So discussion now as to whether or not to approve based on that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor of approving the variance, say aye. Opposed, say no. Carries. Okay. Thank you for coming, everybody. You can go, Heather. Let's see. I think that leaves us with 7A, am I right? Mr. Cope, Neil, why don't you come up so Neil requested, first of all, I'll ask you to just give us a little bit of your background and establish your bona fides with regard to this issue. Neil brought this up as something that we've talked about in the past on this committee. And I know I've seen in the press, there's been a number of new studies and concerns raised about it. And now Neil has brought the issue up both locally and statewide. So can you introduce yourself, Neil, and then do your presentation?
I'm Neil Cook at N7238 520th Street, Town of Menominee. And in your packet, I think you had an article from the Colfax Messenger. And just last Sunday, the Milwaukee Journal Central published the article. And after 2 months of fact checking it and the community back and forth, the article you have in the Colfax Messenger is identical to the article in the Milwaukee Journal, except for I think they highlighted some things in the article and changed the title. Septic waste is pumped from septic systems about every 3 years and can be spread on about 400 sites in Dunn County. And 150 of these sites do not meet the DNR standards for percolation, which cannot be greater than 6 inches per hour. If 150 sites in Dunn County, there must be about 7,000 sites in Wisconsin. 20 years ago, I had quite a bit of discussion with the DNR in Eau Claire and Madison, pointing out this problem. And they then agreed they would take out those sites. And after 20 years, the sites have not been taken out. So recently I had my septic system pumped and I asked the question, where are you spreading it? And he said, I don't spread it. I take it to the Menominee Municipal Treatment Plant. And I said, how much do they charge you? And he said, $75. And the $75 was on my bill. And I said, for every 3 years, $20 a year to save the groundwater is well worth it. And he had a 2-week waiting list. So I had to wait 2 weeks for him to come out and pump my septic system. So he's a very busy person. In Wood County, the haulers got together and decided to take it to the municipality because the groundwater and the lakes in Wood County were becoming contaminated. And to protect their aquifer, they all agreed to take it to the municipality. So I guess I'm asking your committee to ask the county board to write a letter to the state legislators to ban septic land spreading in Wisconsin. Michigan and Florida have banned it. And if you ever look at the ban in Michigan, they have certain adjustments in that ordinance that allows, if it's too far away to take it to a municipality, it can still be land spread. So I think probably in the northern part of Michigan where the towns are small and maybe can't even handle the septic waste, they can still land spread it. But this is a concern nationwide. I think a governor out east recommended banning land spreading of septic systems. And I don't know if that was taken further by the legislature or not, but we have one aquifer in Dunn County. And as I look at the data that's coming in on the chemistry of that groundwater, it's getting worse. Every 5 years, I see reports out by the different counties, and every 5 years they say the groundwater is getting worse, and yet no ordinances are passed to do anything about it. So that's why I wrote that article, and I feel that the state and legislature needs to look at addressing some of the seriousnesses of protecting our groundwater. Thank you.
You know how many sites, Neil, are being actively used in Dunn County now?
Well, I got a copy of 400, and I went through the 400 sites and came up with 150 sites that failed their own standards. And I don't want to put blame on DNR because probably these sites were established decades ago.
Right.
And we have much better information now to evaluate those sites.
Man.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Neil, do you know if those 150 sites are currently being utilized?
I have not heard anything about them being taken out.
But you don't know if they're also used?
I don't know. I think my communication with DNR was, well, some of the sites aren't used that often. And, you know, I can't say how often all these sites are used. The DNR has an honor system with the haulers, and my last understanding with the DNR is there's one person in charge of the whole state of handling septic systems. So, you know, I think in Dunn County they could easily find those 150 sites if they use the percolation map, the soil percolation map. Because I list all of the sites, all the soils, and they could go on the computer and run their sites through and see what soils are in, and that would tell them what sites are not suitable.
I do seem to recall that there are difficulties getting these data back from DNR, that it's incredibly complex.
Yeah, we did as a committee look at this with your help. It's a long time ago.
Well, I spent 2 years probably getting the data from DNR.
I know you just
because they would send me the owner's name. And I said, no, I need more accurate location than that. And finally, I got the township range section and quarter area of each site. So I was then able to go to the map and plot those sites on the map. And that's how I came up with 150 sites.
I remember this.
I mean, it did seem like one of the problems. And somehow I thought that this maybe had been addressed, but was the lack of resources available to monitor these things and the lack of information that was easily available to local governments. That sounds like it maybe hasn't been addressed at all and needs to be. Any other questions from the? Thanks a lot, Neil.
Thank you.
Before we adjourn today, we'll talk about what next steps we may or may not want to take on this. So, Chase.
Mr. Chair, just to remind you, there are two Department of Natural Resource individuals online if you have questions of them on this matter.
Do they want to speak?
I think they may want to at least introduce themselves and offer the opportunity to have you ask them questions.
Thank you, Chase. I was going to get to that, but we can do it right now. Makes sense. The two DNR representatives, if you have comments or would like to share some information, we'd be happy to do that at this point.
Yeah, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
Hi, my name is Peter Carlson. I am an employee with the Department of Natural Resources. I am a wastewater specialist with I cover the West Central region. My primary scope of work is as like the land spreading specialist. So land application requests that come through me. I've been in the position for about a year and a half. So there's, that's a limitation on my knowledge for history. But then I also am the septic coordinator for the West Central region. So I regulate the septic businesses for the West Central region as well. I just wanted to let you know that I am a resource. If you have any questions about land spreading or land spreading sites in the area, the number of them, I could probably even dig up the historic applications for those sites as well. It does take a little bit of time, but for the more recent years, it's a little bit easier with the way that technology has evolved. But any questions from the committee, it might take me some time to get back on them, but I'd be willing to provide information if requested.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if there was another DNR staff that was going to be available online. But thank you.
I think there was another person online, but it doesn't seem that they're there.
Don't see the
now.
only one?
I'm
Okay.
not seeing how they're trying to get out. But Liz Osborne is also present with us in the meeting today in the back and may have.
Okay, so we have someone present here from the DNR.
Ben's back now too.
There she is. Do you have any comments about this or? Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and Ben is back, Tom. That other individual's back online now, so if you want to let him speak as well. Ben Hartenbauer.
Who is it?
Ben Hartenbauer with DNR. He had fallen off and now he's
Ben,
back.
I see you're back online. If you want to make a few comments right now, that would be appropriate.
Oh, this is Ben Hardenbauer. I'm really more on observing. I don't want to take away from Pete Carlson. He's really the DNR person in this capacity. But I'm Ben Hartenbauer. I work in the wastewater program, but my main expertise is surface water effluent limits for point source discharges.
Okay, thank you.
So hi, I'm Liz Osborne, 1032 Creek Ridge Court, Menominee. And I'm the regional non-point source coordinator with DNR. So Steve Warner was not able to make it today, but he addressed some points via email that I shared with Chase earlier. And some of the questions that came up, I feel like some of these points that he made address it. So I'd just like to kind of read what, on behalf of Steve. So between 2021 and 2022, DNR rescinded numerous septic sites in Dunn County. Today, there are about 120 approved sites in Dunn County. Important notes, just because a field is approved does not mean it's actually being used by the septic business. Some businesses infrequently use sites. Some businesses maintain backup sites, and these backup sites have not been used for 5, 10, 20 plus years. So it would be expected that the number of actual fields used in a particular calendar year to be much lower than the 120. And they are able to pull that data from their SWAMP, it's an acronym, database if necessary. It's not super user friendly, so that's why it takes some time to get that information. Septage coordinators statewide are working with septage businesses to pare down their approved site lists. So in other words, they're rescinding and abandoning septage sites that are no longer being used by septage businesses. This is typically done during septage inspections or audits. So this year, DNR rescinded 6 counties, about 30 businesses. The majority of these businesses land spread septage. Many of the businesses audited voluntarily abandoned some or all of their fields.
The DNR septage team is cataloging existing approved sites in its land application geodatabase, LAG. Everything's got to be an acronym, right? This is an extensive effort requiring digitization of historic site approvals. Wastewater management is acquiring funds to continue this digitization project. And of note, this project also includes industrial NR 214 and sewage sludge NR 204 wastes. It's a big project. Currently, there are approximately 5,700 approved septic sites in all of Wisconsin. Septic businesses statewide rely heavily on municipalities' wastewater treatment facilities to dispose of septic. In many counties, only a small percentage of septic is land spread. The rest is hauled to a wastewater treatment facility site. It is worth noting that many of these wastewater treatment facilities return treated sewage sludge to nearby agricultural fields under NR 204. So even though the septic is hauled to wastewater treatment, those biosolids are still land applied. In more rural parts of the state, septic disposal can be a significant logistical challenge, especially in areas where wastewater treatment facilities are a far distance away from the septic system, especially in areas of the state where wastewater treatment facilities have limited or no capacity to receive outside outside the municipality wastes like septic tanks, holding tanks, sanitary grease, portable restrooms, and other non-domestic or industrial wastes. In these more rural areas, septic disposal via land spreading is necessary. In some rural areas, land spreading is the only practical economic option. And finally, the beneficial use of septic and its recycling to the land as a fertilizer, soil conditioner is encouraged under NR 113, Wisconsin Administrative Code, reference NR 113 specifically .01. NR 113 requirements protect public health and surface water and groundwater from contamination of septic. So, thank you.
Any questions of Liz?
Maybe this is too hard, Liz.
I am a proxy.
I know, or
So
or for
please, Pete Carlson, I will shift it back over to him for your questions.
Maybe this is not an answerable question, but do we know what proportion of pumped septic systems rely on the municipal wastewater disposal versus the proportion that gets land spread?
We have someone here with experience.
You have to come up.
I think Pete has an answer too.
Okay, can Pete answer first,
so
please?
It would take some digging to get into, but I could go through the it's difficult because I could see what essentially the treatment facilities inside the county have received for septic waste, but that doesn't necessarily say where the waste is coming from. It could be coming from outside of county, and whether that was, potentially going to be land spread in the county or not. There's some unknowns there. But I could provide the numbers of what was land applied in the county for 2023. The 2024 reports would not be completed until January 31st of 2025. So it would be a delay to find, what's been land spread this year for the county.
Thank you, Pete. I, for one, would like to see that.
2023.
2023, correct. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I can provide that. Who would you prefer that I send like an email with that information to?
Could you send it to Chase Cummings?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for you.
All of it.
Go up
Yeah,
and
go on,
use the
go on.
microphone.
Sure, sorry.
That's so people listen to us in here.
Oh, sorry.
When they YouTube.
Name and address.
My name is Louis Bjork. Test 1, 2. Test.
Got it.
My name is Louis Bjork. I live at E7818 County Road E, Menominee, Wisconsin, 54751.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, so to answer your question, whether it is on a routine maintenance on a septic system to remove the sludge and scum, whether it is land applied immediately or taken to the wastewater treatment plant, ultimately it ends up on the landscape, or a portion of it does. So let's use Mr. Cook as an example, which, by the way, we agree on a lot of things. We disagree on some things. But he lives in a non-sewered home, which means he's not connected to the municipal treatment plant. He has a private septic system, which is a mound system. And a mound system does exactly the same thing as a conventional system, an at-grade system, any other type of approved by the DNR and Department of Commerce treatment systems. So basically, when his septic tank, it's averaged on a 3-year cycle, the sludge and scum occupy 1/3 of that tank's capacity. So by what I mean by that is the way a septic system works in any type of wastewater treatment. And we can all agree that we need wastewater treatment. I mean, as long as we have a bathroom, kitchen, stuff like that, we're going to have wastewater. So we have to do something with it. Now, Neil, he has a private one. He likes to live in the country, doesn't want neighbors, doesn't whatever reason, he chooses that as his lifestyle. He lives in Dunn County, pays his taxes, and he has a private septic system. But that private septic system he lives, I think, right on Tainer Lake or right by it or close or in the watershed. So his wastewater will mingle with those, end up in surface water after it's treated. So that sludge and scum has to be removed from the septic tank, because if it doesn't, it will plug it up and it'll travel into the drain field and cause it to prematurely fail also. Plus, the way a septic tank works is it's an anaerobic environment. What I mean by that is when we're treating the organics in wastewater, there are two major functions, anaerobic and aerobic, okay? So the septic tank is sized to contain the wastewater from your home, or if you have a business, we're sizing it differently depending on a lot of different factors that the state has. We got a little formula. But a home is sized on how many people use that septic system, and it's an estimation. So Neil probably has a 3 or 4 bedroom home, probably. Most people do. What that means is that for every bedroom, we figure that there are 2 people using it. Those people are generating 50 gallons of wastewater a day on average, okay? So that means that for those of you that are really good in math, like my kids are better than me. Anyway, you can add it up. So a 3-bedroom home is going to have 300 gallons a day. Now, that is what we call estimated flow. And we don't design a septic system on estimated flow. We do what's called the worst case scenario. So we multiply that number by 1.5. That means that on your 3-bedroom home, your wastewater generated flow, design flow for organic strength and hydraulic amount is going to be 450. Now, this has been kind of, wastewater treatment in Wisconsin is really, really, really good. Like Converse and Tyler, way back in like the 70s and 80s, which was a long time ago, I think, they designed some of these parameters by testing at the University of Wisconsin. So now his septic tank is probably a minimum of 900 gallons because it has to contain that 450 for 24 hours. In that 24 hours, the solids that come out of your house, turds and things that sink, they go to the bottom, and the scum that goes to the top. That's your cooking greases, different things, other items that are in wastewater, toilet paper, that goes to the top of the tank. Then it stays there for 24 hours where the anaerobic environment is treated. The water that comes out of there in the middle is still water that has lots of nutrient and viruses and other bad things, and that travels out of there. So we have to, on an average, in 3 years, remove that from that tank so that it can continue to do its treatment process. Something has to be done with that. So this has to be, in Neil's case, the hauler chose to take it to the municipal treatment plant. Now, every hauler has a different, like you can take it to the treatment plant, you can take it out of state, you take it to Minnesota, you could take it and you can land apply it, and you have different options when you land apply it. He chose to take it to the city. Now the city is going to treat that now because we're high in organics and we have lots of other things in it, viruses, pathogens, different things. They're going to treat that. They're going to return the water right to the river where we go fishing and swimming and in the boat. So there's a big gate out there where it comes out of the treatment plant. It goes right back to the surface water, which goes to Lake Monoman, all the different stuff. And every municipal treatment plant has the same process. Nat has the same process. And so basically that water, the solids are going to go. Does anybody ever see the blue truck go through Menominee? The blue truck every single day goes through Menominee. I think depending on the time of year, 1 or 2 times a day. That is no different than the septic truck that you see in the fields, folks. That truck is taking the sludge and scum, came from Neil's septic tank, from the big storage tanks that they have down here, out to the bigger storage tanks out by the glass plant. Has anybody ever seen the harvester silos out there? Those are full of all of the solid materials, sludge and scum that came from the city treatment plant. It goes out there. Now, in a certain time of year, usually after the crops are off, I believe the city of Menominee will contract with somebody, probably Chris Lindstrom from Practical Applications, and they will spread that. A lot of it goes on fields by my house. I know they use Quillings, Dale Quillings fields a lot, and they spread that on the field, and then they work it in, and it becomes plant nutrients. Now, that has been gone through a process and it's been a little bit more treated than the stuff that we take directly from Neil's tank. But in essence is the same thing. So it still ends up on the landscape. Now, when we pump Neil's tank and we don't take it there, if we land, and this has happened too. So I know it's a wonderful option and it's not about money. I want you to be aware, coming from my point, this is not about money. If it was about money, we would just charge people more and take everything there and never mess around with it. But it's not. The treatment plant has to run also. It has to take care of everybody in Menominee. And then when Stout has homecoming and we have all kinds of other things, they have to take care of all that too. And then we have large rain events. And we still have, in the old days, all of the plumbing, the storm water and the sanitary used to be tied together. And they've done, over the years, have separated those two out. But the treatment plant still gets an upsurge when we get heavy rains. Now, all of that, if that disrupt their plant, which lives on the same bugs that break down the wastewater in the soil at my parents' farm, when I land apply it, it's the same process. What the city of Menominee does, and everybody else does the same thing, when they can't take it, they shut it down. You don't haul there. So over at your house, when your toilet backs up and your tank is full and you have to do something and they don't take it, there's going to be no option if we can't land apply. Other municipalities don't want it. I've tried Chippewa, tried Eau Claire. I've hauled some stuff to Bloomer. They don't want it. They don't want anymore. They don't want to charge for it. They don't want to deal with it. They don't have the staff. They don't have the facility. They don't want it. Now, the good thing that we have is that if Neil is passionate about not having his personal stuff land applied, he can take it to the city and they can charge $75. And that's exactly what we do when it's raining, or everything on the west side of town that we don't have to drive all the way back to this side of town and treat it. Because I'm here to tell you, land application is not free. It is very, very, very hard. It is very hard to apply the right amount. It is very hard to adjust your pH, account for your temperature, make sure you have a 30-minute wait time before you put it on the ground, or to incorporate it, or to inject it, and to not over apply, cause compactions on the head grounds, leave bad spots in the things. If I made a mess at my place, my kids would be out there with a four-wheeler screwing around in it. It can't happen. It's very, very hard. So, in a perfect world, it would just disappear. We would never have to treat it or think about it. Now, I got all kinds of things, and I love to talk septics. I love to talk about these things, but instead of me giving a presentation, I want to answer any questions that I can. We have I me and Heidi have 9 employees. We install septic systems, we rent porta potties, and we land apply, and we do everything from unplugging drains to putting new pumps in. And our guys do too. And I started for Todd Sins in 1995. So I've been doing this a while. And I know some things, and I'm also unique because I'm also a certified soil tester, and I'm also a master plumber, and I'm also a master in charge for our business, and I'm also licensed to do wells. So I have a unique number of licenses, but I've only gone to the tech school, and I've soaked up over the last 30 years of doing this just about every presentation done by the DNR and Department of Commerce because I'm fascinated by how it all works. So I just want to say this in case I don't have any more questions. This has been tried in Dane County. If you want to know what it's like, it's all case. You can look it up. Everybody knows where Dane County is. It didn't work. It's not going to work in Dunn County. If I can tell you that personally, there's all these sites. Yeah, I get that. Every year, I report every gallon that we take from everybody's house, and I give it to the zoning office, I give it to the DNR, and I keep records of it. I have the last 6 days of where we've been in every truck, and I could tell you all day about all the regulations that we follow and how much education that we do for our guys and everything that we do to protect human health and the environment, because that's the #1 sentence in the first part of our code that we sign on for. I'm going to tell you, there are people that no longer pump in Dunn County. I can tell you, you can look in the Leader Telegram under some other people that got fined $50,000 for doing it wrong. Fined. I can tell you that the very person that wrote part of the code in Chippewa County, friend, they screwed up on their paperwork and over applied on a field, and they paid $40,000. It's real. The DNR has been to my house more than once, not because we did something, but because somebody complained, or another pumper complained, because you guys know just as well as that our public is out there. We're at school, we're at every other church, we're at everything with everybody else. And so sometimes people have concerns, instead of asking me, it gets turned in and we describe it. I can tell you that we're going in the right direction with technology. I can tell you that our equipment is getting better. I can tell you that when I started in business, when me and Heidi started in 2009, when Braxton was born, it was $100 to pump your tank. Now it's $400. Maybe it's not that much. I'd have to ask Heidi. But anyway, it's a lot more. Instead of trying to do 10 tanks at Inc., our guys do 3 or 4. It's just the way that it is. We do a better job because of the continuing ed that we're required to do every year. We do a better job because we understand our role in the environment. We understand that we do a service. We understand more, so it takes more time. And that's our business personally. And I can tell you that for the other people in Dunn County, I know that they're passionate about this just as well as I am. And I know that if we asked them to, they would come and talk about it also. So at that, I know I get long-winded. I love to talk about this stuff. I'll ask if there's any questions for me.
Any questions? Louis, could you just maybe talk a little bit about how you interact with the DNR in your work, and what, how are sites designated, and
Absolutely.
Are there enough resources to provide you with kind of help you need and identify correct sites and that sort of thing?
Yes. And so I'll tell you a quick story. I bought a lot of used lime. And I said, and you're like, well, why do you have lime? Lime is used to control the pH in septage. Okay. Lime is amazing. So there's a couple things that are bad about wastewater that more than the organic effects that turn, things green and stuff like that. There's viruses and pathogens in wastewater. What goes in your body? When they were trying to figure out where COVID was, guess what? Guess what they were testing? Wastewater.
So it goes through there. So it's very, very serious. And people say, well, what's the difference between manure? Well, those are cows. And I'm not saying that that's not going to raise the nitrates in your well. And I'm not saying that it's not going to hurt the environment, because it wasn't, the density is an issue. And so is the subdivisions an issue. But getting back on topic, let's see how I can phrase that now. So buying used lime. I knew I'd think of it. So anyway, the regulations have always been there, but what I feel like is in the last 5 years, there's been more contact. I won't say enforcement. There's been more emails, more stuff, more conversations, more continuing ed required, more things. And basically, there's what happens, and land applying is very, very complicated. You know what I mean by that? It's like, when I get older, it's like, I never thought about retiring, but now I'm planning on it to just simplify my life, So there's a lot of pumpers that have been doing this a long time. And basically, when you go to somebody's house like Neil's and you pump the tank and you take it to the city and you drop it off, you're done. Okay? I mean, not done. You still have to report that. When you land apply, there's so many variables now that you got to do. You've got to watch your timing. You've got to watch your load pH. You've got to watch your temperatures outside. You got to watch your driveways in and out. You got to watch, people recreating. You got to watch. You have so many things. And now you have to report all of this too. And you have to report it so that you don't exceed the nutrient intake of the plants on a given parcel, that you don't over apply, that you do your complete application twice a year the way you're supposed to. You have to, it's much more complicated. So the used lime, there's a bunch of haulers in the last 5-10 years that just said, we're not doing it. You know what? I got the truck paid for. I don't care. I don't need to work that hard. And they got the same amount of customers, so they take it to a treatment plant, and they drop off that continuing ed. They go from a grade L to a grade T, much simpler to maintain your license. It's so much easier. You don't have to mess around with lime. You don't have to have an incorporation rig. You don't have to have approved sites. You don't have to, if the treatment plant would guarantee $75 and they'd be open, I would never put another gallon on the ground. But that's not the world we live in. That's not what happens. They get overloaded. They say, you're done. And then, somebody's toilet's backed up or somebody's tank is full. I can't drive it to Bloomer and charge that customer $1,000. And so it becomes a really difficult situation. And so the ability to be able to use that as a resource and to also have another option, because we land apply some and we like all the porta potty waste goes down there. Everything.
What is the percentage of waste that you take to the plant?
Okay, so easy 25%. Easy 25%. Easy 30% in the summer, 50% in the winter, if not 75 or 100% in the winter. Because our season is only, the county starts sending out letters for maintenance, and it is only during the growing season. Do you know what I mean? So we'll start in the spring on a field when we can get in there, and we'll put our waste down with lime. Then that crop year will come and use that nutrient. We'll move to another field that we have that's approved. We'll use that in the summer. Maybe that's going to be a hay field. And so we'll apply on that hay field. And then we'll go back. Now Dad will chop the corn, and now we'll apply on that, as long as it's not wet, we'll apply on that corn, because now he'll plant soybeans next year, and that nutrient will be recorded on the year that the plants use it. So you never, ever want to overload. So I 100% agree with the permeability. I know what the soils are. I know what they are. I know what the permeability is. Now, I could tell you this. We're all low use fields here. We apply 12,900 gallons per acre. Now that is, I don't have the stuff in front of me to show you how little that is if it's done correctly, but it's not much. And so what happens is we put that on, that's used by the plants and then basically goes back in the environment. Regulations, every one of the guys is licensed. Every truck is subject to be checked by everybody from the game warden to the specific wastewater specialists, to anybody can stop my trucks, look at my records, look at my hoses, look at my everything, always. DOT, they do it too. Everybody is concerned with the environment and pumping. When you put your truck out there, you are subject to all of it. That's just that stuff. Then, so the guys all have continuing ed every single year. They can't run a truck unless you're licensed. Every one of the guys, we got all their stuff on the wall, 9 of them up on the wall, pass the test. So they do that. Then I'm the operator in charge. And so that means that I'm responsible for all of them. And if there's an issue, it goes to me. They work for me and I'm responsible. And then I report all of that to the DNR where I'm putting my stuff down before the end of January. So at the end of the year, I take all those gallons and we keep copies in the truck, we keep copies in the office, and we keep a copy. So like if we get calls all the time, they say, oh, I got a letter from Tracy and they said, we didn't have our tank pumped and I know you guys are out here.
No, so I'm gonna have to,
But we have a copy of that. That's all I'm saying.
yeah. So thank you for coming today and, that's very informative.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. But that's all for now.
Okay. No more questions?
No more questions.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Anybody else, just out of curiosity, or have we? So, Neil specifically asked if we would take action and make some kind of a statement or position on this. I don't think we're ready today to do anything like that, but would it be okay with the committee if I put that on the agenda for future discussion? Then I'll do that. And thanks everybody for coming. We'll have more discussion about this and try and sort through what the right position for the county is with regard to further consideration.
May I ask one quick question? And maybe Chase remembers, we've never put anything on our legislative agenda, or
No, that's an option, I think.
have we? I have this vague memory that maybe we did once.
If you want to hang around, I can find it. But
No,
I think
no, that's
Let's
later,
find
but
that for the next meeting.
Yeah,
and then we
I
can
think
see.
it's on there.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too.
Well, back, I know when we did this, the groundwater study, this was a topic that came up and we had much discussion. I think Lewis and Neil are both testified to that committee. So we won't drop this. We're just gonna keep poking into it a little bit and trying to figure out what role it makes sense for us to play. Anything else for anybody? Then we will meet again in December, at least first meeting in December, if that's okay with everybody. And we are adjourned. Thank you. Sorry, my hearing aids aren't working today, so I can barely hear anybody. But I'm sorry if I seemed out of touch or something.
Oh, no, you're fine. Yeah. Sorry for the surprise, like abstention there.
No, it's,
Worried I caught you off guard.
yeah, I get your concern about that, I'm very sure. I just.
Oh, here, why don't you turn off your microphone?